Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into something kind of mind-bending, honestly. We're talking about how technology, spirituality, and just like our human need to connect all kind of intersect.
Sounds deep.
Yeah, it is. That's why we're doing a deep dive on it.
Right.
So we're going to be looking at this guy, Alex Bell.
Okay.
Alex had a near-death experience, an NDE. And it gave him some wild insights into how all of our digital habits, the stuff we do every single day, might be affecting us like on a soul level.
Interesting. So we're not just talking about, technology is bad, put your phone down, that kind of thing.
Not at all. This is way more nuanced than that. Alex had some really intense visions. He saw this possible future where we're so overloaded digitally that we can't even experience the divine.
Oh.
Yeah. But there's also a hopeful side. Alex got some guidance on how to use technology in a way that actually makes us more connected to, everything. Ourselves, each other, even a higher power.
It's fascinating how these deeply personal spiritual experiences often end up being about humanity as a whole.
Right.
Alex's NDE seems to be saying something important about how we're all relating to technology right now.
Totally. And it's not just like a voice saying technology is bad. It's showing the impact in this symbolic way that goes beyond just logic. It hits you on a deeper level.
Right.
Okay, so Alex's NDE, it didn't just come out of nowhere. This guy was living what a lot of us would say is a pretty normal modern life.
From what I read, it sounds like Alex was really plugged in.
Oh, yeah?
Spending hours on his phone, scrolling through social media, checking emails constantly, just consuming tons of online content. Does that sound familiar?
Totally. I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of always being connected.
Yeah.
But for Alex, this all came to a screeching halt when he got into a really bad car accident.
It's kind of wild how an accident like that, which we normally think of as a terrible thing, can be what leads to a spiritual awakening.
Yeah, it's like the universe has a way of shaking things up. Making us look at our lives and ask the big questions.
Right.
And for Alex, that happened in the most extreme way possible. So during his NDE, Alex has this vision. It shows him the whole history of technology, from the most basic tools all the way to where we are now.
That reminds me of the idea of the collective unconscious. We're all connected and we all share in these experiences of humanity.
Exactly. So Alex sees these golden threads. They represent genuine human connection, like the bonds between families, friends, communities.
Okay.
And for most of history, these threads are strong, vibrant. But when the vision gets to modern times, Alex sees those golden threads getting weaker, like something else is overshadowing them. He calls them artificial connections, these digital links that try to imitate real connection, but they don't have that same depth, that energy.
So it's not that technology itself is bad, it's that we're replacing real connection with something that isn't quite real.
Exactly. Like trading real gold for fool's gold.
I'm curious, did Alex's NDE give any clues about why these artificial connections are so appealing? Why do we choose them over the real deal?
That's a great question. And this is where the idea of technology as a false idol comes into play. Alex actually got a message from a divine presence during his NDE that explains this.
Hold on. When you say divine presence, what did Alex actually see? I'm always interested in how people describe this in NDEs.
Well, he saw a being of pure light and love. This presence radiated knowing and understanding beyond anything Alex could imagine. Not a specific figure, more like universal consciousness.
Interesting. That seems pretty common in these accounts. So this presence had something to say about technology.
Oh yeah, this is where things get really interesting. So this divine presence explained that technology itself is neutral. It's a tool. The problem is that we let it distract us from the connections that truly nourish us, on a soul level. We're chasing tiny dopamine hits from likes and notifications and missing out on the deeper fulfillment that comes from real interaction and spiritual connection.
Makes you think of those experts who say social media is like a Skinner box for humans.
Right.
We get these little bursts of pleasure that keep us hooked, but we end up feeling empty.
It's like we're being trained to choose the quick fix over what actually matters. And that rewires our brains, making it harder to reach those deeper levels of connection.
Makes you think.
Yeah.
So did Alex's NDE show what this rewiring actually looks like? Did he get any visuals of our brains or something? Or was it more about the effects of this digital overload? Not exactly visuals of the brain, but more like the overall energy around connection, Alex saw these two contrasting scenes. One was two friends park having this deep talk.
I can picture it.
Their golden threads were all bright and intertwined, almost like sharing one life force.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other scene, total contrast. Two people alone in their apartments, surrounded by tons of digital connections, but their golden threads were super weak, almost broken, like barely hanging on.
So they're digitally connected to a ton of people,
Yeah.
but actually isolated energetically.
Exactly. And this is where it gets kind of scary. Alex was shown this possible future where humans are so overwhelmed with the digital stuff that they basically can't feel the divine anymore.
Oh, wow.
It's like all the information and entertainment creates this spiritual static that blocks out, those subtler frequencies.
That is bleak.
Yeah.
Is there any way to avoid that future? Or is it inevitable?
Well, thankfully, Alex's NDE wasn't all bad news. He also saw visions of hope, like glimpses of a future where people are using technology more intentionally in ways that support connection.
Okay.
Like he saw families having dinner with no devices, people using social media to organize real-life meetups, and even technology being used for like meditation and prayer.
That's cool. We always talk about the downsides of social media, but rarely the good stuff.
Right.
There are so many online groups for mindfulness and personal growth. It can be powerful for connection.
Absolutely. The takeaway from Alex's NDE isn't to like throw our phones away, but to become more aware of how we're using them.
So not anti-technology, but pro-humanity, pro-connection, pro-soul.
I like that. And Alex actually got some specific guidance on how to make that shift.
Okay, I want to hear this. What kind of advice?
One of the simplest things was look up. Like literally put down the devices and engage with the real world. Make eye contact with people. Notice nature. Enjoy the little things,
It is funny how powerful that is.
Yeah.
We're so used to looking down that we forget to look up at what's right there.
Yeah. But is it really possible for people to just ditch their phones entirely? Tech is such a huge part of life now.
Good point. It's not about going off the grid completely, but finding a balance.
Exactly. And Alex's NDE had some practical ideas on how to do that, like creating tech-free zones in the house, no phones at the dinner table or the bedroom, stuff like that. Also, setting aside time for things that don't involve devices, going for a walk, reading, talking to someone.
Those are things anyone can start doing today. It's not this huge life change, just little choices that prioritize being present.
And those choices ripple out. They don't just benefit you personally, but they show the people around you, especially kids, that there's more to life than screens.
I love that. So we can be the change, starting with our own digital habits.
Exactly. And there's one more piece of advice from Alex's NDE that I found really interesting. It's about how we start our day.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. How should we be starting our day?
Instead of grabbing our phones and getting lost in emails and social media, Alex was told to start with gratitude. Like, take a moment to connect with the divine, appreciate the new day, and set an intention for how we want to be in the world.
Wow, that's powerful. It's like we're choosing to focus on what we're thankful for instead of what's missing.
Yeah. And it can really change how we stay connected all day long. When we start with gratitude, we're less likely to get caught up in comparisons or needing validation,
We're primed for connection, not competition.
Exactly. And it all goes back to that core message from Alex's NDE, that we're not digital beings having a virtual experience, but spiritual beings having a human experience. Mm-hmm. Our true selves are in those golden threads of connection, the love and light that flows between us when we put down the devices and really see each other. That's where real fulfillment is.
Such an important reminder. So what happened when Alex came back to everyday life after this? Was he able to live by these insights and have a healthier relationship with tech?
That's the question. And it's something we'll talk about in the next part of our dive. Alex's story takes a turn when he comes back to his old life, his old phone, his old habits. It shows that transformation isn't always straightforward, There are ups and downs.
So Alex had these incredible visions and got all this advice during his NDE. But when he came back to normal life, did he actually change how we use technology? It's got to be tough to take those insights and make them real,
Yeah, it's almost like he had to reintegrate twice. First back into his body and then back into a world that's full of the exact thing he's now questioning.
Did he totally quit using his phone? Go off the grid?
Not exactly. It was more gradual with some wins and some losses. At first, he did try to disconnect, avoid his phone as much as he could. He spent time in nature, started meditating, tried to have more face-to-face conversations.
Sounds like a healthy detox.
It was. But he realized pretty quickly that just rejecting technology completely wasn't going to work for him. His work, his social life, even learning new things, it was all tied up with the digital world.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's hard to live in the modern world and pretend the internet doesn't exist.
Right. And that's when it clicked for him. The NDE wasn't about hating technology, but about using it consciously with purpose. Finding that balance between online and offline.
So instead of seeing technology as the enemy, he started to see it as a tool, Something that can be used for good or bad, depending on the person using it.
Exactly. That change in perspective was huge for him. He made these small but important changes to his digital habits.
Like what? I'm always looking for ways to manage my own tech use.
Well, one thing he did was turn off almost all his notifications. Just kept the essential ones. That helped him focus and not get pulled in by all the distractions. He also started using his phone more intentionally, picking times to check email and social media instead of just scrolling whenever.
That's something I need to work on. It's so easy to get sucked into that.
It is. And it's not just about screen time, but what you're actually looking at. Alex started being more selective about his social media. Unfollowed accounts that made him feel bad and followed ones that inspired him, made him laugh, things like that.
We do have control over that. We don't have to just take whatever the algorithms give us.
Right. We can create a digital space that feels good, not draining. But maybe the biggest thing Alex did was use technology to make his real connections stronger. He organized in-person meetups with friends, used video calls to stay in touch with people far away, and even joined online groups that matched his interests.
So use tech to connect, not isolate.
Exactly. And I think that's the heart of Alex's story. Technology itself isn't the issue. It's all about how we use it. When we're aware, intentional, and focused on connection, it can actually make our lives better and even deepen our spirituality.
It's like anything else. It can be used in different ways.
Yeah.
We have to make the choice.
That's a good way to put it. Alex's story reminds us that we have a lot more power than we think when it comes to technology. We can be mindful, intentional, connected, even when the world is constantly trying to distract us.
So as we wrap up, is there one thing you want listeners to remember from this conversation?
Don't be afraid of technology. Don't make it the bad guy. But don't let it run your life either. Use it as a tool, but use it wisely. Focus on those real connections. Look up, engage with the world, and remember that the best parts of you are in the love and light that flows between you and everyone else. That's where real happiness is.